Hello, everyone. How are we all doing? It's Dan Harrison here at one of our regularly scheduled town hall meetings. The date is May 28th. And yeah, it's we're going on week 10, I believe, of this crazy pandemic. And I was thinking about how I wanted to use the time with you guys today, and I see there's 60 odd people on with us now, and it's climbing. And I thought I'd share a little bit about last week. I there was a couple of things going on last week that really I would say let get to me or got to me or not sure exactly the way to frame it, but I was kind of discouraged on Friday. I we had a great unity forum. It wasn't that. It's just that I was, I had some, sometimes I get some anxiety that maybe do I have the skills to deal with this? We're beginning to talk about reopening and it's so easy to say reopening. We shut down in the flip of like one day, and boom, we were closed, like it or not, better or worse, it was done. But to reopen, it's going to be so different, and there's so many complexities that are going into the planning for it. And maybe I was just feeling like maybe I needed a little bit of a break. So the Memorial Day weekend was good. Um, and you know, I've told you before, I'm not this guy that people may think I'm this self-confident, short, like, oh, I know everything that's going on and I know what I'm doing. And honestly, a lot of the time, I worry that am I doing enough? Am I doing the right stuff? Am I educating myself well enough? Am I motivating my team in the proper way? And I'm part of ADDV boards and the coordinating council and all these meetings and all these things and everybody talking about all of the pressure and everything that we're facing. And I said to somebody last week, in a way, I kind of wish I was 10 years older and I might have maybe retired before this all hit, because it's not as much fun as what my job used to be. And I'm just being honest here with you guys. And so I think about everybody out there in NuPath world, and I think about the concerns and the anxiety that people are facing. And I guess I share this because I just want you to know that I'm not just out like having a big old party for myself. Not that I would think that's a stupid thing to say, I guess, but um, this hit us all in profound ways, and I guess if I didn't worry as much about what's going on with people, with all of our staff, with our clients, their families, I wouldn't feel such pressure to make sure that what we do is just the absolute right thing to do, and that we're being strategic in how we approach this. And I there's not a prescriptive formula for how are we gonna do this right, or what's the best approach. It's different for every organization, but I sometimes am filled with self doubt. It's not like I get an idea and I automatically I'm like, yeah, that's the right way to go. I know this is the right. I'm going to fight for it till the end. A lot of times I'm following my instinct, and I try to do what I think is going to be the right path for people, and we're doing some amazing things. I don't want this to be like a downer. I just wanted to share and share kind of where I was right now. And this we got word, bad news. I guess it was yesterday that Sam Valente, who is Rosemary Hubbard's father, and we serve her son Robert in our program. Would be his grandfather passed away, and he lived. His name was Sam Valente. He lived in the first floor of Benchmark assisted living, where my mother lives, on the third floor. And I've gotten to know Sam since my mother's been there over the past year and a year and a half or whatever. And sometimes we'd sit and have dinner with him and my mother, and he was just the best guy, just this good natured, happy guy. And I know it's just been a devastating blow to Rosemary and her sisters, and he died of COVID. And we're going to talk a little bit more about him tomorrow, maybe. But it's just, if you know anybody that's passed away, it becomes real really quickly. And if the statistics now are that we have crossed over the 100,000 deaths in the United States. 100,000 American lives that have been lost. And that is just a staggering marker. When you think about what that many lives mean, just to put some perspective to it, it's double the number of deaths that we experienced in the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War that was this flashpoint in American history. The number of protests that were fighting against the draft, and the number of deaths that we were having. The number of deaths that we've experienced are 3 times as many of the people who have died from the seasonal flu. If I hear one more person say to me that this is just as bad as the seasonal flu and what's the big deal, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, that is propaganda. If you are hearing that, it's wrong. It's false. There are many differences between the seasonal flu and COVID-19, and we can dedicate the facts to another town hall if there's an interest in doing that. But we lost in the past few years, I think the greatest number of deaths have been 60,000 in an entire year. It's 12 months of the seasonal flu, and we're barely in 4 months of COVID-19, and we've lost over 100,000 lives in the United States. So that is something that is got to be in our minds. And with all of the talk recently about the tragedy, the scourge of the opioid crisis and the number of deaths, this is far more. It's more than the combined numbers of the opioid and suicides in all of 2019. That's how much we've lost. And we before this happened, all we heard about was the number of deaths due to the opioid crisis. And that just puts some perspective on where we are and why this is something that we have to be so thoughtful about, making sure that as we consider reopening and as we move forward, that we're taking into account the seriousness of this. 100,000 American lives, but what is that? How does that affect? What does that mean? Well, if you think about the fact that the United States, the population in the U.S. is about 5% of the world's population, okay? That 300 and some odd million, whatever it is. It's just 5% of the world population. And yet the number of deaths that we've had so far have now approaching 28%, nearly a third of all of the world's COVID deaths are in the United States. That is such a serious concern, and a fact that we could not deny. And part of I feel that my job and my role here is, for all of us, is to make sure that we are constantly being observant of what this pandemic, the threat of this pandemic, what the loss of lives really truly means, and how serious this is, because I know how weary people are. I know that the summer with its heat, it beckons us, and we're sick of masks, and we're sick of all the other things, and we're seeing pictures, from people frolicking in the Ozarks and other beaches of Florida, and who knows what else, and it can begin to feel like, why are we doing this? And too much is being made of this. But I'm telling you that this is something that we have got to be so respectful of this pandemic. And I say respectful because it means we need to know that this is a formidable foe that is causing great disruption and havoc in our lives. And when we think about what's going to be required to reopen our programs, our day programs within our agency, it's all going to be related to the data and to what the Massachusetts is reporting. So we've been looking the last few Thursdays at where Massachusetts is in comparison. And when we look at the number of deaths that we've had last week, and I put this, superimposed this upon this week, you can see that there has been an increase, but the level has gone down. We now are at 6,547 deaths, but compared to the number of increases before, it's decreased, and the global cases and the United States cases continue to rise. In fact, we're over 100,000. We're actually at 102 as of current data that's been reported. And when we look at the dashboard, and I don't know if any of you had the chance to take a look at it on mass.gov, but some people may say, why are you going through this trouble? If I didn't, if I wasn't looking at this to kind of prepare myself as CEO of this organization for where we stand in relation and what is going on a statewide level, I wouldn't stop to look at it either. So I'm guessing that many of you who are watching this right now probably haven't seen this and maybe haven't been thinking about it. But these are the statistics from Wednesday of last week, and I wanted to put them up side by side to compare. But you can see that we had 1,045 newly reported cases at this time last week, but we're down to 527. So that means that the number of newly reported cases is on the decline. If you look at the indicators there, the status bar, which is green, yellow, 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 green, yellow, that's what we're going to be looking at. And I'm going to be looking at, because as we begin to think about opening our programs, or when we start to do that, if we see red in there, or if we see a trend in the negative direction, there's going to be a halt. And all of this, guys, is because we don't have a vaccine. There's no treatment for this. So we have to be thinking about it in this way. So the number of confirmed cases were 94,000 as of yesterday. The number of deaths for COVID-19, 6,547. And the number of tests performed, 552,000 altogether. So all of this is to say that this has got to be a data-centric, focused approach to how we're proceeding. And so I'm getting a little tickle in my throat, so that's never a good thing. If you want to know how to clear a subway out, get a tickle and start coughing. And I was on a subway, but I was in a store. So we're going to be paying very careful attention to the statistics and what that means. And I'm just begging all of you to continue to rely on the guidance that has been set forward. Use your mask, maintain social distance. You know, I had a case this past weekend of Memorial Day weekend of going with my mother-in-law, Sharon Baldarelli. We took her in my car to 2 different cemeteries to drop off flowers of her parents and my husband John's father and his parents, and we had masks on, but we took her in my car, and I felt funny about that. Honestly, I felt like we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be so close to her. And she's 75, and I was almost feeling like I was doing something wrong in violation of like, if anything happened to her, if she was ever got sick and she died of this, I could never forgive myself if I thought that I had brought this upon her. So we've got to keep this, you know, front and center at all times, and know that our actions have impact upon others, and especially those that we're most inclined to probably want to be with. You know, to our families who have their kids that they haven't seen for so long. For me, that hasn't seen my mother. There are very good reasons why these restrictions remain in place, and as painful as it is, more painful would be the loss of somebody, the death of somebody that we cherish and that we care about, and if you can't see that, then call me privately and I will tell you about what that personal loss and that tragedy feels like. So that is something that we're going to maintain and keep in contact. So part of what we're going to be doing is looking at what is NuPath now, what are we now, and how are we going to reinvent ourselves, and thinking about, you know, the future of the organization, and how we talked to someone about this yesterday or last week, the daily services that we're providing, the frequency and type of those things, staff deployment. We're going to be doing a major reevaluation, our roles and responsibilities, how is that evolving and how is that changing, and listening to what our stakeholders need and the expectations that they have for us. You know, I'm on the something called the Coordinating Council of Massachusetts. It's a group of ADP, some board members, and people from DDS, the deputy commissioner, and a number of regional directors. We're talking about all the questions that are going into what is it going to take to reopen our services, and how are we going to get there, and all the things that we've got to be thinking about. And I think I started out by talking about how overwhelming it can feel at times. And I don't know if the next slide is the questions that we had gotten from one from somebody that was yeah, I think this is a question that was emailed to Greg from a provider residential manager, and I'm going to have Greg throw them up there. This is from another from a residential manager. I'm not sure what her name is, but if she's watching today, I want to just say to her, your questions are very smart questions, and I put them up here because I want to kind of illustrate what it is we're trying to think about and what it is we still don't know. The questions are, I'm wondering how the Without Walls program activities will look. Well, we're trying to figure out. So this is somebody that's in the No Walls programs, and we're believing, our assumptions are that is probably going to be the safest program model for people. I still believe that this is going to be a point in our history, not just at NuPath, not just in Massachusetts, but maybe even, you know, across the country, where we can look back and say this is the beginning of the end for many of our facility-based kind of program models. These facility groups that people are cloistered within, in these sheltered environments that really do not provide the greatest opportunity and expectation. But it means that people are going to be out and exposed to a wide variety of people. We're talking about building in our data collection for contract tracing within our Navigating Life app, and a number of other things that we'll need to do. Second question, will return dates for participants be staggered? And again, another excellent question. We are talking about you know, the fact that we can only have a certain number of people in buildings, and if we can't fit everybody in, are we going to be looking at staggering the start dates, or are we looking at something where we do one group of people in our programs for 2 weeks, and then another group for 2 weeks, and then we reverse? So you have two sort of cohorts of people, and 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And that way, if anybody in the smaller group happens to get COVID and people have to be quarantined, it fits into the schedule of the 2 weeks of the quarantine. This is the model that several states are adopting as far as their plans to return to in the fall to the educational system. This is kind of leaning into the virus and the pandemic and finding, hey, let's go with the 2 week cycle, because that's what we know to be the time that this virus will incubate within a person and within a host, and will be you know, shedding, and will be easily able to be caught by somebody else. Will transportation be provided? Again, another great question. Transportation is something that stands out there as being a huge source of concern. I mean, how do you imagine fitting as many people in vehicles as what we have been used to transporting? I mean, transportation's always been a rotten beast of a thing to manage, and I give my hats off to people that run our transportation division and our routes day in and day out. I say to them all, they're really heroes in the sense that that often they're the main person that people are seeing, you know, the families are seeing when their loved one departs for work or comes home. But it's a tough one to sort out, because are we going to put up plexiglass shields that are going to protect people? How much cleaning can we do? What are we going to do? Can we trust? Can we do only a certain portion? You know, it's the reopening plans in Massachusetts, and people maybe heard things in the news about, you know, different stores and industry and restaurants opening. There are many models that a partial reopening is just not an effective plan. Many restaurants cannot, you know, even break even if they don't have more than, you know, 10% or 20% or 50% capacity. They have to, they operate on a margin that demands a close to 100% capacity, and our transportation division is very similar. That and in fact many of our programs are. So that's something that needs to be sorted out. We've talked about maybe finding a way to try to get residential providers to do the transportation. We in our many of our autism programs provide transportation using our own staff. So that may be an option, but many residential programs that may have, 2 or 3 different day providers that their folks go to, and so they may not have the staffing there to do it, and so it's not an easy answer. This person writes, if the agency feels it is best for him to return, not to return as soon as NuPath opens, how long would the day program spot remain open if he does not return right away? And this is a question that I know many of our families are asking, especially those that have people that are very medically fragile and are not able to, would be more vulnerable. And so the first part of the question, yes, the day program spot will remain open. I think that we are, looking at all of these various kinds of concerns that providers are having. And I don't know who this residential manager is, but my hat's off to her, because these are really, and this is a person, and especially if they're not part of NuPath, they're using this town hall to get their information. Well, I mean, you've got good taste, so I commend you for that. But that you're thinking ahead to these things on behalf of the people in your residential care. I mean, that really shows a level of dedication and devotion that really speaks a lot about where your mind is and where your energies are related to the health and safety and wellness of the people in your care. And so these questions and many more are confronting the provider community as we begin to think about reopening our day programs. And what I think is that our day service in Massachusetts is going to look very different by the time this is all over than it is now. And I had a meeting earlier today to talk about, well, maybe it was yesterday, lose track time, to talk about our virtual delivery of programming. And this is, people that are, that are using the Zoom, opportunities, the Bright Live, and some of the other things that are offered during the course of the day, and envisioning maybe a kind of a regional or a statewide consortium of providers that are investing a certain amount of their resource into developing really high quality opportunities for organizations, for people at every level, that can pick and choose and customize what their days look like. Maybe options to get certified in certain areas, through virtual format, or to engage with with other people in completing them. Some of them may be recorded, so people can do them at their own time of their own choosing, or some of them may be live, so they have interaction with others. These are things that literally 3 months ago we were barely even thinking about, and this whole pandemic has pushed us into a situation where we really have no choice but to be confronting this. And so what may have been a simple kind of day program experience for somebody 2 months ago, they get on the van, they come in, they're with their friends, they get in the van, they go home. 5 days a week, boom, holidays off. I don't think that's going to exist in the same way. I think that we're going to be seeing a much more, and by the way, I think in many cases it will be a vast improvement if we can customize, the model, the experience for each person, according to what their needs are and what their particular interests are. So we are continuing to kind of plug along and think about these various questions. And we thank the heroes that we have, the NuPath heroes that continue to who have worked with our people in our COVID centers, in our care center. These guys are, as I've said before, have have meant so much to us. As we think about preparing for the reopening of our day programs. We have one person, I think Dan talked about on Tuesday, remaining, convalescing in our care center. And I think that once she is gets the clearance to head home, that we are going to begin to explore options for any future cases. Since we've seen a real decline in, I think we were talking about a positive test case percentage of, near 30% when this all began, and now we're down to right around 4%, which is just exactly where it should be. And so hopefully we've arrested this thing, and if we can maintain social distancing and being smart and demonstrating the kinds of use of PPE and all the rest, that we can hopefully keep a lid on this thing until we see a vaccine. But as we reclaim the care center for our administrative offices, and we think about the future, we will start to see some of our administrative staff moving back into the spaces. And I can't wait to get in my office. One of these days, I want to be able to do these town halls from my office at New Boston Street. It's just much more comfortable. My monitor screen is really nice and big there, and here I'm looking at this little, my laptop. So just from a comfort level, it's going to be good, and just to start to send the signal to our staff and to our families and to our communities that we're going to rebuild. We're going to get back to where we need to be. It's going to look very different. The outcomes are going to be very different for folks, and in fact, many of our staff are going to have to think in different ways about what their old positions were and how they're going to look in this new age post COVID-19. But we're going to emerge from this, and I know that we are positioned to be exactly the kind of organization that's going to be the kind of leader that we need to be, because we got this, guys. So I shared this picture with you last week from Sharon Pitts said to me, writing it in the sand. When I think about the utilization of the virtual options that are out there, how we have our community in general, and when I'm on these statewide sort of calls and groups, and I hear people saying, well, we've got so many old families that can't do this and doesn't have access, and I just hear a lot of people, a lot of excuses for all of the the exceptions to why this can't happen, and I don't hear that from our NuPath team. I just see people figuring things out and solving problems and supporting our stakeholders in getting what they need in order to be part of this virtual sort of circumstance that we find ourselves in. And I know we're going to do that as we go forward into the future. So I started out this by saying I've been feeling a little discouraged. I want to share that with you because I wanted you to know that I'm a regular person, and I'm just looking at myself. I just realized how awful I look. And I worry and I'm concerned because I care deeply about NuPath, and I love this organization more than I could ever tell you. There's nothing I would not do, hardly. Maybe even some of it. Maybe even I consider. I would do just about anything for this organization and for the wellness and the health of this organization, and I'm going to continue to do that. But there are times that you feel a little low, but feeling better today, and I know that we're gonna get through this, and this is going to be this is going to be a new part of our journey together, a new part of our story, and we will get through this. We got this, guys, and I want to thank everybody out there for your continued interest and support and hard work and care of the people of our families, and making sure that we're on track to have the most amazing reinvention of ourselves and the NuPath that we could ever imagine. So join us tomorrow. We're having our Unity Forum, and we're going to be talking tomorrow to some NuPath staff who have had the COVID virus and recovered from it. And I don't know about you, but if you don't know anybody that's had it before, be interesting. I've got some questions I'm looking to ask them. and to better understand what this experience is like and how people have responded from it. So it's a sector that we haven't talked to, but we've got some folks that have had it and have recovered from it. So that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you at our Unity Forum. And as always, please take care of yourself, be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, guys. Bye now.